Now that you have a city plan template to work from, we want to make sure that we understand what is our first goal in this first part. So the goal of this is to create roads. And using these tools here, which you can find under the toolbar, you can see the different line tools where we'll actually construct our first road. So to create a road, you're going to select 2 different points on our grid that will act and serve as our first road. What you will see if you use the standard line tool, that it's very hard to see. So what you're going to do is select that road, where you'll have to select the cursor tool, select the road, and from here you can see these tools show up. Now the black is a great color to use, it will show up nicely, but the thickness of the line isn't really showing up. So using this tool, we can increase the thickness, and so we can see the line. And so you can see now that 12 seems to be a pretty good font to use. For us, going through 2 points using the line tool, we also probably want to give this road a name. So using this text box, we're going to click somewhere close to our road, where we're going to call our road something. In this case, I'm going to use just First Street. When you press OK, you'll see that it doesn't really look like it's there. But if we use the selection tool, we can select that, and we actually can change the tools to help us. So what might be nice is giving it a background that we can see, where that's a little bit easier to see. And if you wish, you can also change the coloring of the road. For instance, you can change it to blue. I'm going to keep it black. And you also can increase our size. Now let's go with a very large so we can easily see the name of our street. And we want to put it somewhere on the road that we can see where it's going through. Now that we have our line in our first road and first street, we also need to make sure that we're recording the information going along with this. As you can see, this road was designed to go through 2 points. The point -3, 2, and the point 3, 4. And to ensure the rest of the streets are parallel, perpendicular, or just intersecting to our first street, we want to record some information. So what I'm going to do is, on a sheet of paper for you guys, you want to record some of the information. So what we're going to first record is the name First Street, where we want to show that we have the algebraic concept of slope behind us. And so as we can see from the project, that the points -3, 2 and 3, 4 are the 2 points that the street goes through. So what I'm going to do is record those on my paper. The point -3, 2. And also that the street goes through the point 3, 4. And what do we want to record is to make sure we record the information or the slope of First Street so we can justify other streets are parallel, perpendicular, intersecting. So using the slope formula, we're going to take the y's, y2 minus y1, and then x2 minus x1. To do a quick calculation, that 4 minus 2 is 2. 3 minus a -3 will be actually adding. And we want to reduce our slope so that we have the slope of First Street is 1/3. Now that we know the slope of our first street, in this case it was 1/3, we can start designing the rest of the roads. One of the criteria for the roads of your city plan is to make at least 4 other streets that are going to be parallel to each other. So what I'm going to do is, instead of using the line tool, let's instead use array. Very similar to the line tool, you're going to select 2 points. So maybe I'm going to select a point down here, but we also want to make sure we use the same slope of First Street. So the slope of First Street was 1/3. So I can simply go up 1, right 3, to create my second road. Since it has the same slope, we know it's going to be parallel to First Street. We also might want to change the thickness of this as it's hard to see. So using a standard 12 seems to work. And we also might want to use a text box to give the street a name, and we'll simply call this Second Street. Since it's hard to see, you may want to select the tool using a standard gray background, and we'll use the very large, too large. We'll use the large size again to note 2nd Street. 2nd Street, which we actually used the slope already to show that these two streets are parallel to each other. We want to make sure that we're providing the algebra to justify these roads as parallel. So again, we're going to record the information with 2nd Street, that we want to record 2 points that 2nd Street goes through. Here we have -6, -4, and we also have the point -3, -3. And so what we want to do is record on our paper 2nd Street, and we also want to record the 2 points that it goes through. So as we looked at, 2nd Street goes through the points, went through the points -6, -4, and also went through the point -3, -3. And using these points, we want to justify that these 1st and 2nd Street are parallel based on their slope. So we're going to calculate the slope of 2nd Street using the slope formula, difference of the y's, -3 minus -4, over difference of the x's, -3 minus -6. And we want to complete this calculation. So here, subtracting -4 is like adding, so -3 plus 4 is 1. And then again, subtracting -6 will be the same as adding 6, giving us 3. So we can see that 1st and 2nd Street are going to be parallel based on the criteria that they have the same slope, making them parallel streets. To continue on your city plan, you need to make sure that you're making the set criteria of streets that are parallel to 1st and 2nd Street. One more tool that you can use to create your streets is the segment tool. So we also need to make streets that are perpendicular to 1st Street and 2nd Street. And so I'm going to use the segment tool to create a segment that is going to be perpendicular to these two parallel streets. So for instance, maybe I wanted to use the segment tool where you'll select 2 points. And since we know the slope of 1st Street and 2nd Street, we know that the opposite reciprocal slope needs to, our 2nd Street, or our next perpendicular road, has to have the opposite reciprocal slope. In this case, that would be the slope of -3 over 1. So using a point, we can go down 3, right 1, and you can see that's not really intersecting other streets, so we can go do that again. Down 3, right 1, and maybe one more time, down 3, right 1. And now that we have a segment representing our next road, we can also change the format of this to be a little bit thicker so we can see this actual street. And we also might want to give this a name using the text box. And let's just call this one Central Avenue. Again, you may need to change the format of the street. To select it, give it a text box color, and change the size so we have the name. Now to complete the justifications, you may have to extend this line segment to intersect the other roads, but you would also need to make sure that you're recording the slope of Central Avenue so that we can justify it using algebra that it is parallel to the 1st Street, 2nd Street, and other parallel roads. When you complete the first part of the project by making your roads, naming the roads, and recording the slope of the roads, you want to make sure you save all changes to this project. To finish, you can click on this tool and hit save, and you might want to save it as the city planning project, or sorry, city plan map with your name that you can access at another time. Tomorrow we will work on finishing the project, or work on part 2 of the project, where we'll be recording and placing buildings inside our city map.